in the Urban Dictionary, it basically says broke is a person who's very loyal, very caring, very kind, is going to be there for your friends, or, it's that kind of personality that the character instills, and which is exactly what I feel that Broke communicates as well, is about as well, that it cares about the environment, it cares about the people and the stories of the garments and everyone that's involved. And so that's one. And the other meaning is basically that, being able to style yourself with what you have. Like, you don't need to spend so much. Like, you don't need to spend luxury amount of goods or money in order to make yourself look good. Like, if you have the aesthetic, if you have the sense, you can just shop from your wardrobe. And that's where the narrative kind of came in. Like, all the shopping from my wardrobe was something that I attached to the meaning that already existed in the year. So it's more about just I'm fashionably broke. I'm fashionable, and I can make myself look good with whatever I have. So it's basically coming up with my own styling agendas and mantras from my own wardrobe. And that takes a lot of creativity as well from people. And you get to have so much fun because you're creating so many cool styles with stuff that you've had for years that you haven't thought about before, right? So why do you really need to buy something new anyway? And everything just kind of came together with this philosophy that this name means so much. It communicates every aspect of what I look and grow for. So yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. And I've read somewhere that you also mentioned that your design is for all body types, all genders. I think it's gender neutral, right?
It's a gender inclusive brand, and Bangladesh has never had that. And I'm very happy that I've been able to introduce that, because as growing up, it's been difficult. Bangladeshi, in terms of access to clothes in Bangladesh market, even though we are the second largest manufacturer of the world, we're producing garments for Zara, we're doing it for H&M, Mango, Levi's, and so many other stuff. But all the cool stuff goes to the export markets, right? So we don't necessarily get access to very cool garments here, which means that you're essentially importing stuff from abroad. That's one issue. And the other one is that growing up, the size fit has always been an issue. The variety of stuff that I wanted to express myself with has been very limited. And that's where things kind of started to come in. Because of the way I identify myself, I identify as a non-binary person. So I go by the pronouns she and them. And for me, it's really important to be able to harness that identity the way that I want to, which can be so fluid. I feel that gender is such a fluid spectrum. It's on a spectrum. Gender is not binary. It's not just male or just female. I feel a male can feel feminine sometimes. He can feel masculine. And it's about your mood, how you feel at that point of time. And why won't you want to express yourself for that moment, or how you're feeling in that mood, and capture that mood. So Broke's very moody in that sense. I want to be able to express myself, and the clients that I'm working with, or basically empower the youth and the younger generation, the Gen Z, and the audience that I cater to be able to express themselves without holding any reservation through the clothes that I'm creating from Broke, because it communicates that gender neutral aesthetic. So for a girl or a boy, or for whatever identity that people identify themselves with, I feel that brands need to be able to cater to those people, and not help, but empower, just give people options to dress the way they want. It's just so liberating, because in terms of being gender neutral, the idea is that you get to explore so many sides of yourself, your mood, your personality. And it's not restricted. There's no restrictions, and clothing shouldn't have restrictions. But we've always seen that, in any context, it's a very white patriarchy that has kind of created these notions of how a woman should look. Very petite, very fragile, very, voluptuous in a certain way, needs to be able to show the curves in a certain way. Whereas a man has been like from the early 19th century, like these kind of indoctrinates have been like kind of taking on brainwashing people through like media, through stories, through descriptions, and like in all of these communication channels that shaped the way we perceive a man and a woman. Man is very masculine. A perfect man has broad shoulders. Like they're defined by the characteristics of an armor of the early ages. Like it's inspired by the Greek times, right? Like how people had like how they were portrayed. Like like the V shape for the man, so that they need to be like very broad, strong. Like all of these words that we associate with like masculinity, these were brainwashed into like fashion. These were like, I feel that when you look into like indigenous styling or like tribal styling, that they're very gender neutral. Like they wear what they want. They have their own aesthetic sense. They're very unique. Like they don't assert, what do you call it? I mean, like there's no biasness in how they perceive things. And we have kind of like through colonization, through Western civilization, it's kind of like been brainwashed into like looking at white portraits or like, the whole imagery that the white male or the white woman portrayed in a certain way is what is beautiful. The connotations of beauty have been brainwashed into our minds. Like we can't unsee it or like unhear it or unlearn it. It's very difficult. Like, and even with like any kind of advertising and marketing, we're always kind of like try to portray that. And so I want to kind of break those stereotypes, like I think it's high time, and it's happening now, like globally. There's a revolution in sense of like accepting like the LGBTQ community and talking about, gender inclusiveness and like how important fashion is that in expressing those identity, because that's the first thing you look at yourself. It's such an empowering tool. So how we dress is how we feel is what I think. And that's the idea that Broqué is working with, to break those stereotypes, to just chill and just like wear what we want. Like if I want to wear like pants, I should be able to wear pants. If a guy wants to wear skirts, he should be able to wear skirts, whatever pronouns we use, whatever identities we use, like it should be accepted. Like I don't understand like why there are so many restrictions, like why people go like, no, you can't dress that way. You're supposed to be dressing this way. So where does the supposed restrictions come from? Like, how does that happen? So it's interesting. Like you go deeper and deeper into like history and like in terms of like fashion, like identity and like all of these things, and you learn so much prejudice that we carry. And I just want to break those and just create a very, very chilled out environment with Broqué.
No, but it's super interesting because I think on this aspect it's as if, okay, how to, remove all the brainwash that has happened over centuries, identity, etc., etc. But I feel like, this is like social, cultural aspect of Broqué. So beautiful to see how it's also Broqué is also the story of your life through like all the messages that you carry with you. But if we look at, it reminds me of what you said in the beginning, right? Like, your grandparents, they were, exchanging clothes and stuff. It's like what you also highlight and emphasize in like slow fashion movement. I feel like as well, it's what you mentioned in the panel. Like, you were like in Bangladesh or everywhere in the world we were. Like fast fashion is super new and it's not something we cared about until recently. And in Bangladesh, even more. It's like you share a lot about like indigenous or more traditional ways of, producing all the traditional clothes of Bangladesh that, long time before. And I feel like, you're trying to close the loop with Broqué, like coming back, break the stereotypes, coming back to a more sustainable way of either identify yourself, also producing clothes. Am I saying random stuff or does it make sense?
Oh, no, absolutely. Not at all random. Like you're right. There's so many angles to it actually, like, which is what's very interesting, like, which is what excites me a lot about Broqué as well, that it's just not about a garment. It's about like you're right. Like it's about so many aspects of my childhood. Essentially, that's what I want to pass on. That's the legacy that I want to, share with the people, stuff that I have experienced. And I feel like there's so many other people out there who have had similar experiences or are going through something similar. And it's just being able to like, you know, identify with one another and relate and be able to create that inclusive environment and work together and like unite through sharing garments with each other. It's a very beautiful, I look at it as a very beautiful way of like exchange.